Thank you for joining me in my studies today. 21 weeks ago, I began to externalize my studies of a book a week by sharing vocal readings of the passages that are most prominent to me. This week, I'm reading Be As You Are, Teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. There is a treasure so simple, yet so fervently hidden from us by our own egos. The essence of our being is the sacred all. Modern day discoveries in physics are supporting this basic principle of cosmic consciousness, making it a very exciting time to be alive. Throughout history, though, the evidence for cosmic consciousness was more transient, elusive. It was communicated through a serenity, bliss, equanimity that many wanted and others labeled as lunacy. And those who wanted it were bound by their desire. The very intent to distinguish an object of desire is the mechanism for imprisonment by the ego. Sri Ramana Maharshi was a sage whose silent presence was enough to communicate to some, and who devoted his love and motion to patterning his words in inexhaustible variety to assist the opening of those who asked for it. In today's readings, we will see many descriptions of how to clear the traffic such that we may see that expanded consciousness is always available to us, as it is who and what we are. I never tire of exploring the infinite avenues toward opening. Enjoy. The simple message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, one of India's most revered spiritual masters, whose teachings 40 years after his death are speaking to growing audiences worldwide. Be As You Are, edited by the librarian at the sage's ashram, still flourishing at the foot of the holy mountain of Arunachala, is a compendium of those riches, as bequeathed personally to pilgrims hungry to discover what is the ultimate truth. I will read just one statement from the introduction. His verbal teachings were only given out to those who were unable to understand his silence. On page 7, we have a lovely summary for what is to come in this book. That in which all these worlds seem to exist steadily, that of which all these worlds are a possession, that from which all these worlds rise, that for which all these exist, that by which all these worlds come into existence, and that which is indeed all these, that alone is the existing reality. Let us cherish that self, which is the reality in the heart. Page 9. True knowledge, or Jnana, is not an object of experience, nor is it an understanding of a state which is different and apart from the subject knower. It is a direct and knowing awareness of the one reality in which subjects and objects have ceased to exist. One who is established in this state is known as a Jnani. Page 10. The radiance of consciousness bliss, in the form of one awareness shining equally within and without, is the supreme and blissful primal reality. Its form is silence, and it is declared by Jnanis to be the final and unobstructable state of true knowledge. You are awareness. Awareness is another name for you. Since you are awareness, there's no need to attain or cultivate it. All that you have to do is to give up being aware of other things, that is, of the not-self. If one gives up being aware of them, then pure awareness alone remains, and that is the self. There is no duality. Your present knowledge is due to the ego and is only relative. Relative knowledge requires a subject and an object, whereas the awareness of the self is absolute and requires no object. Page 13. All that is necessary is to get rid of the false notion that we are bound. When we achieve that, there will be no desire or thought of any sort. So long as one desires liberation, so long, you may take it, one is in bondage. Page 17. The heart is the center from which everything springs. Because you see the world, the body, and so on, it is said that there is a center for these, which is called the heart. When you are in the heart is known to be neither the center nor the circumference. There is nothing else apart from it. Realization is nothing to be gained afresh. It is already there. All that is necessary is to get rid of the thought, I have not realized. Page 19. There is no reaching the self. If self were to be reached, it would mean that the self is not here and now, and that it is yet to be obtained. Skipping down. Therefore, realization is for everyone. Realization makes no difference between the aspirants. This very doubt whether you can realize and the notion I have not realized are themselves the obstacles. Be free from these obstacles also. Page 20. The wrong knowledge of I am the body is the cause of all the mischief. This wrong knowledge must go. That is realization. Realization is not acquisition of anything new, nor is it a new faculty. It is only removal of all camouflage. Page 23. You yourself impose limitations on your true nature of infinite being, and then weep that you are but a finite creature. Then you take up this or that spiritual practice to transcend the non-existent limitations. But if your spiritual practice itself assumes the existence of the limitations, how can it help you to transcend them? Page 25. The trouble lies with your desire to objectify the self, in the same way as you objectify your eyes when you place a mirror before them. You've been so accustomed to objectivity that you have lost the knowledge of yourself, simply because the self cannot be objectified. Page 29. Mukti, or liberation, is our nature. It is another name for us. Our wanting mukti is a very funny thing. It is like a man who's in the shade, voluntarily leaving the shade, going into the sun, feeling the severity of the heat there, making great efforts to get back into the shade, and then rejoicing, how sweet is this shade! I have reached the shade at last. We are all doing exactly the same. Page 31. The conception that there is a goal and a path to it is wrong. We are the goal, or peace, always. To get rid of the notion that we are not peace is all that is required. This is a wonderful place to end for the day. We're on page 39. The Jnani, or liberated one, sees no one as an ajnani, or not liberated. All are only jnanis in his sight. In the ignorant state, one superimposes one's ignorance on a jnani and mistakes him for a doer. In the state of jnana, or knowledge, the jnani sees nothing separate from the self. The self is all shining and only pure jnana. So there's no ajnana, ignorance, in his sight.